Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'du, inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli wa sallim da'iman abadan ala habibika khayri khalqihi محمد وآله وأصحابه وأهل بيته وعترته وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. Respected brothers, sisters, and all the community members of Keston and UK, and all other families who are joining in to this weekly series of Seeratul Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I would like to welcome everyone, mashallah, and alhamdulillah, we have now reached the lesson number 14 in the series, and we have covered quite a major part of the early life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved last prophet, before he is reaching to the stage of receiving his first revelation. So in the last 13 lessons, now we are on the lesson number 14. We have, looked at, first of all, the historical background of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Ibrahim alayhi salam, and how he was asked to leave the wife and Ismail alayhi salam into this deserted place where we have the Kaaba and Makkah now. And then in between the valley of Safa Marwa, Allah Ta'ala gave them Zamzam. And then eventually a Yemeni tribe, they were traveling and they saw the water, so they settled down. The Yemeni, they have two main tribes, Qahtan and Adnan. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually belongs to the Adnan tribe, where he married into this, and then Ismail alayhi salam, in fact, and then it continued all the way down to the tribe as we know it as the Quraysh. And then we looked at the before the birth aspect of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what happened, which included Abraha and his attack to destroy the Kaaba. I'm just revising briefly for our children, mashallah, who are following this program. And of course, something which is repeatedly mentioned, then it sinks into the mind. So, the background before his arrival, and then the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he spent 4 years of his early life with Bibi Halima, who wet nursed him, and then came back into the custody of the mother, Bibi Amina, who then took him to show the grave of the father, Abdullah. And on the way back, she passed away. And Al-Emaan brought him back into the custody of the grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. But he only remained with him for another 2 years, and then he passed away. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his orphanage is actually in stages, who he's been passed on to. You can imagine how a child must be feeling as he's going through different custodies from one to the other. And then finally he ended up with Abu Talib, and this is where he spent the major part of his life. He's growing up and he's helping him out initially as a shepherd. Allah Ta'ala is protecting Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam because he is going to become the last honorable prophet of this world. So he's being protected from all the evil environment of Makkah as it was at that time, where they had all sorts of moral and spiritual diseases. So he's being protected from all these. And he grows up into a young man who is honest, who is trustworthy. And this is something which all the communities around him, they accept him like this, that this person is honest and trustworthy, Sadiqul Amin. And because of that, Bibi Khadija sends him for business with one of his servants, Maisara, and he is so impressed by him. He comes back and informs Bibi Khadija, which eventually ends up into a marriage with Bibi Khadija. So at this stage, he was 25, and Bibi Khadija, different riwayat, some say 40, some say 30, some say 28, whatever it was. However, they both married and they started living together. And then last week I mentioned about the rebuilding of the Kaaba, and then the placing of the Hajar Aswad, which became a major crisis in all the tribes of Quraysh, and everyone was fighting, and they were ready to shed blood and fight till death if they are not given the opportunity and chance. So you can imagine how corrupted these people were before Islam. And this is the environment in which Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is growing as Sadiqul Amin, the pure protection from Allah Ta'ala. And then in last week we mentioned how they all decided that whoever will walk in through the gates of gate of Banu Shaiba, which is how the people used to enter the Kaaba in those days. There was a main gate. And of course, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam walked in first, and they all accepted him. In fact, they rejoiced by saying Sadiqul Amin is there. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then obviously came with the brilliant suggestion that bring a cloth, and they placed the Hajar Aswad on the cloth, and all the tribe leaders, they carried the Hajar Aswad. So this way, everyone was happy. Everyone got what they wanted. So they all carried it, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam then picked up the Hajar Aswad and placed it inside, in the right place. So we went through all this in detail. I'm just briefly mentioning it so that this historical and the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gets fixed in our mind. This is what has happened. When we will hear it again and again and again, inshallah, briefly, it will fix into the mind. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam now placed it, and he is now probably around 5 years away from becoming a prophet. And we looked at this important thing which Allah Ta'ala is creating in the environment. Number one, the rebuilding of the Kaaba. Why? You know, there's a symbolic sign, if you like, that Rasulullah, the arrival of a new prophet is imminent. And so before whatever was built by Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam is dismantled, is destroyed, and now rebuilding takes place. And of course, the mushrikeen, those who were the idol worshippers, they still had a great respect for the house of God. And so they made sure that everything halal is used in order to rebuild the Kaaba. And because of that, they couldn't build it properly as it was built by Ibrahim alayhi salam, which was, as I mentioned last week, it was a rectangular shape, but they didn't have enough money, so they made it into a square, as it is now, we see. And then they made the half wall around. As you know, those who have been to the Haram, they will see that when you enter through the gate of Fahad, as you enter, you actually approach the side of the Hatim, where there is the half wall. So they built this half wall to surround the whole area, which is actually the inside part of the Kaaba. But you know, as I mentioned, that Allah Ta'ala made this happen in such a way that because no one is allowed to enter inside, and there is great reward and virtue for worshipping inside the Kaaba itself, that opportunity not everyone has. So a big part, 30% or 40% of the part which is outside, surrounded by the Hatim wall, that part is also considered to be the inside of Kaaba. And general public and all of us, we have the ability to go in there and do ibadat there. So this opportunity, maybe Allah Ta'ala created this situation so that everyone will have the opportunity. Now they built it in such a way, they made a number of improvement in the renovation of the Kaaba, if you like. Number one, they used the best material, which in fact this Caesar, Roman king had actually sent for one of the church to be rebuilt in Yemen, but the ship actually crashed and landed into Jeddah, and then the Arabs, the Quraysh, they went and bought all those beautiful material, and there was also a builder from one of the Qibti tribes who also came with it, and he helped them to rebuild. So when they built it, they used the best material and made a square. And the improvement they made, first of all, they increased the height of the door, probably around, I would say, 7 feet high. The door now, as it stands, it's about 7 feet high, so that no one could enter inside. Only those who have the authority can go in. And then they built actually system above the roof, like the gutter system, so that if it rains, the water can flow outside. So all these improvements they made. And then the Hajar Aswad was placed by Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So we reached that level, and now, Allah Ta'ala has united all the people around him, because this is important for him once he becomes a prophet. So Allah Ta'ala is setting the ground that everyone has come in. And then we briefly talked about the marriage and then the children, right? So I would like to mention a couple of aspects in connection with the children of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. As we know that all his children actually came from Bibi Khadija. He had 2 sons and 4 daughters, right? So Zainab, Bibi Ruqayya, Kulsum, and Fatima. These were the 4 daughters, and then Qasim and Abdullah, the two sons. And Abdullah obviously was called by the father as Tayyib, and father and mother, they had given him names Tayyib and Tahir. So they are not 2 separate children, but it was the love name which they used to call him by. One used to say Tayyib and one used to say Tahir. So all the sons passed away, early childhood, and even the daughters we find, 3 of them, they actually died before the demise of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Allah Ta'ala made it in such a way because Allah knows what's going to happen in the future. So, Zainab, Bibi Zainab, and of course the Ruqayya and Kulsum, these are 2 of them who actually became the wives of Hazrat Usman radiallahu anh, one after the other. One passed away, and then Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave Hazrat Usman 2 of his daughters, and all 3 of them, however, they passed away before the demise of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then one important thing which I was going to talk about today is one of the slave of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who he had adopted, and he became the adopted son of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And adopted son of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam meant a very high position, of course. He was given all the, and how this happened, there is a big story behind, Zaid bin Harisa, and he actually belonged to the Yemen tribe. As I mentioned earlier, there were 2 main tribes. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came from the tribe Adnan, and he was actually from the other one, Qahtan tribe. And what happened was that while he was maybe 7, 8 year old, there were problems with the husband and wife families, as sometimes happens, so that they fight each other. And this fight became so huge that they became enemies of each other. And one of them decided from the other side to kidnap, the sisters. In fact, because the mother was the sister of the other side, they decided to kidnap, the son, Zaid, just to take revenge. Subhanallah, these uncles. And they actually kidnapped him, and they sold him. And just by chance, Bibi Khadija, she had actually told his nephew, one of his nephew, Hakim ibn Hizam, I think his name, Hakim ibn Hazim, that I'm looking for some slaves, if you are going to the market, please buy some. So the nephew, he ended up buying Zaid. He was sold out. So they actually, you know, their fight became so bad that, close relatives, they actually kidnapped one of the sons of the sisters, and then they sold just to take the revenge from the husband. Subhanallah. So, anyway, he was sold, and the nephew of Bibi Khadija bought Zaid bin Harisa, his name was, and he came into the custody, and then he gave it to Bibi Khadija. And he was around 7-8 year old at that time when he came, and he grew up there. And then when Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam got married to Bibi Khadija, Bibi Khadija gave Zaid as a present to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and told him that now you have to serve Muhammadur Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as he was so gentle and kind and merciful and honest, all these qualities were there. So he actually gave him so much love that he never felt like that he was a slave, and he continued to live them. And this is obviously before the prophethood. This is happening. So just around the 5-6 years before Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is about to become a prophet, one of the relatives of Harisa, the father of Zaid, they came from Yemen for Hajj, and whatever Hajj they used to do in those days. And they came, and he saw Zaid and looked at him and thought that, this person actually doesn't belong to the Quraysh tribe. He doesn't have the features. In fact, he has more features of us, of Yemen, than here. So he just was compelled to go and ask him. He said, where are you from? And in the end, he discovered that he was Zaid bin Harisa. And of course, he had grown up now. He's probably around 20, 22, or whatever age now. He's a young man, but he recognized him. And of course, when he went back, immediately he informed the father. And the father, you can imagine, he was looking for Zaid for all these years, 12, 14 years he had passed, searching for him, crying for him. When a father loses his son, you cannot imagine, what a person goes through. And he didn't give up. He kept looking and searching. And in the end, he discovered that. So he quickly, because he knew that he's now a slave, so he quickly gathered whatever money he had and went with his brother, and then discovered that Zaid is actually under the custody of the grandson of Abdul Muttalib. So he searched around, and he eventually ended up in front of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this is, of course, around 5-6 years before the prophethood now. And he came and he started praising Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and praising him. So Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he knew that he wanted something, and he said, well, what do you want? Tell me. It's like, a young son, probably we have done this during childhood, that if we wanted something from the mother, we would just go and start talking to the mother. Mom, you are great, you are lovely, you are beautiful. And, and then once the mother hears all this, she says, okay, tell me what you want, right? So in the same way, he started praising Rasulullah. So Rasulullah said, well, what do you want? He said, well, we have discovered that my son, I've been looking for him, and he was kidnapped and sold, and he's with you at the moment. and we have come with the money. Whatever you want, we are ready to give you. If you can, since you are such a generous and kind man, if you can actually give that back to us. So Rasulullah sallam, called Zaid, and Zaid is now a grown-up adult, and Rasulullah sallam said to the father that, look, I don't want to take any money from you. Zaid is here. He is old enough. He's an adult, and he can decide by himself. He has the. I'm giving him the option. If he wants, he can go with you, and I'm not going to take any money from you. In fact, you can go. He can go free. And if he wants to stay with me, and this is where the scholars, they say that because he had lived with Rasulullah for so long, Rasulullah really loved him now. He had this inner love, and he doesn't want to let go of him. However, the moral situation is such that he has to give the offer to the father. So Zaid, he gave the choice to Zaid. And of course, now this is the situation. And, if you look at it deeply, from that we can work out how much love Rasulullah must have given him. And it's actually unnatural, that someone who is a blood relation, father and son relationship, that the son decides that, Ya Rasulullah sallam, I don't want to leave you, and because you are for me more than a father and more than an uncle. Both of them are standing there. They're both standing there, and he says, you are to me more than a father and more than an uncle, and I want to stay with you. And both of our father and uncle are astonished, surprised, and they say, what's going on here? So they can't believe their eyes, that what Zaid is saying. And of course, ulama, they say that deep inside, Rasulullah wanted, because he really dearly loved him, but he gave him the choice, and he decided that he said, Father, I'm going to stay with Muhammadur Rasulullah, and he is more than a father and uncle to me. So when they heard this, they were obviously not too happy. However, they were satisfied that at least their son is in great custody. And when Rasulullah heard this, he made the big decision at that point. Up to that level, although he was treating him like an adopted son, but to everyone he was Zaid bin Haritha. But when Zaid made this decision, Rasulullah took him near the Kaaba and announced in front of everyone that, people, I want to inform all of you that from today, this son of mine, Zaid, he is no longer Zaid bin Haritha, he is Zaid ibn Muhammad. Right? So he officially declared him, and he embraced him and gave him more love than a father could give. And that's how it remained. And then until, Allah Ta'ala revealed the ayat of the Quran after prophethood, many years after, instructions about adopted sons when they came in the Quran. And this is actually ayat number 5 of Surah Ahzab, where Allah Ta'ala is saying that we should not change the names of the children if we adopt them. We should still keep them the same, give them the name of their father. So up to now, everyone knew, all the Sahaba and everyone, they actually knew him as Zaid bin Muhammad, ibn Muhammad. and he was treated like that, in fact. And he was given all the rights of Quraysh and everything. But when this ayat came, then Rasulullah ﷺ changed it, that now we still have to call you Zaid ibn Harisa by your father name. So, these were the instructions given for the. So, number one, there is a room for adoption. And number two, then Allah Ta'ala has given the instructions. So this is the full story, in fact, which is important in the Seerah. And Zaid, of course, later on we will, he actually married, in fact, because he was a slave initially. So he married Al-Emaan initially. And because she was a slave also, don't forget, she's the one who actually looked after Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Zaid and Al-Emaan, they married, and they had a son. They named him Usama. So Usama ibn Zaid. And he had, later on we will learn that he's going to play a very important role at the time of demise of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And all the sons had died, passed away during childhood, and Zaid also actually died in one of the battles before Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because he had given so much right as the son of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam now, that Allah Ta'ala planned it in such a way that Allah Ta'ala didn't want anyone who is very closely connected with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, or those who are called the sons, to be alive before his death. And so one of the battles, I think it was in the battle of Ghazwa Mota, or Battle of Mota, in fact, which was a very serious war. This is the one, famous one, where Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in fact, made the army and then said, Zaid, made him the Amir, number one Amir. Imagine, because as the son, he said Zaid bin Harisa will be the Amir, will be the leader, holder of the flag. And if he passes away, then he gave it to his cousin Jafar ibn Abi Talib. Right? So Zaid, if he becomes Shaheed, then Jafar ibn Talib will take over. And if he becomes Shaheed, Abdullah ibn Rawaha will take over. And in fact, all of them passed away at that time. They all, one by one, they died. And all became Shaheed. So, and Zaid actually became a Shaheed before the demise of Rasulullah. And then, of course, his son, Usama, we will learn later on. I will mention that in another time as we go more detail into. So, this is briefly all the children are passing away, and Zaid is playing a very important role. Another very important aspect connected with Zaid was that after the Al-Emaan, Zaid actually married. I mean, you can imagine how Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave him the full rights of his of Quraysh. That one of his Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam cousin, Zainab bint Jahash, right? So he actually married Zainab with Zaid. Right? But unfortunately, they didn't get along very well. And there was issues in the marriage. And I'm mentioning all this because this is mentioned in the Quran. Allah Ta'ala. And these are all obviously the instructions where Allah Ta'ala probably created such situations, that an adopted son and then marries one of the cousin of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Zainab bint Jahash, and then divorced. And then Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he actually said, I will marry her. Now the question, came that, Zaid is the son of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and how, but he's the adopted son. Right? So Allah Ta'ala wanted to break this also and give clear instructions about this, that the wife of the adopted son, if he is divorced, what can happen? Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, and Zainab also did not feel happy, although the proposal is coming from the leader of all the prophets. But she said that I want to consult my Allah. This is of course after Islam. And then the ayat of the Quran came, so about this. And incidentally, Zaid, the adopted son, has such a great honor and status and respect that no other Sahabi's name has been mentioned in the Quran except for Zaid. Allah Ta'ala has specifically by name, even Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala and Hazrat Aisha, the verses of the Quran, they came, but indirectly they have been mentioned, but not by name, except for Zaid, whose name actually has appeared in the Quran, right? And then Hazrat Zainab, Allah Ta'ala revealed the verses of the Quran, and in fact the nikah, the marriage of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam with Zainab bint Jahash actually was performed by Allah, because Allah has revealed the verses of the Quran. So these are some of the aspects which will come later on, but I'm just mentioning because we are trying to cover about Zaid in this lesson. So Zaid, very high status, but he actually became martyred, shaheed, in Battle of Mota, and then and he actually led the battle. That's what the status said. So all this is happening now, and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is just a few years away now from becoming a prophet, just a few years away, and then this is the time when he would go and sit in the cave, Ghar Hira. He used to go there and meditate and spend time trying to get away from the society because of the corruption and evil all around. And he would just go and meditate. And the signs are coming now. Really. Obviously, the major sign was the rebuilding of the Kaaba, as I mentioned. That Allah Ta'ala, the rebuilding of the Kaaba, and Allah Ta'ala is uniting all the tribes, and they all are united with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They accept him as the Sadiq and Amin, and all this the groundwork is already done now. Now, you see, as he is going to the cave, sign starts appearing, and inshallah, this is where we have to end the program, but we are going to inshallah continue now from here, that what signs, like Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam started to have, number one, clear dreams before the revelation, before the wahi came. He started having dreams, which in fact he would see things which would come true the next day. And then as he is walking, he starts hearing the pebbles and stones. They are taking his name. So all there are many things. Inshallah, we will mention, and then we'll take it from here. Inshallah, continue. This is before he is now trying to become the prophet. So all this prophet has, a prophet, Muhammadur Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we find from all this now up to whatever level we have reached that he's just like a human being. He's like an ordinary person. He's, you know, and he has done all the things like a human. No, he's grown up like a child, and he's actually has conducted business. He has become, in fact, shepherd. You know, to take care of the sheep. That is one of the things which we see common in all the prophets. Most of the prophets, they were shepherds, because being shepherd, taking care of the sheep is not an easy task, in fact, to manage them, because so this was done by most of the prophets. So he's gone through all the steps as a human being, just like an ordinary human being. So Allah Ta'ala has shown that he's not someone from outside, you know, an angel, a prophet. So all this has happened, and now he's on the verge of becoming a prophet. And inshallah, we will try and start from there in the next lesson, lesson number 15. I wish everyone all the happiness. Stay safe. We are still going through the pandemic conditions, and I hope, and now that the schools are also starting, so please make sure this Seerah program is still in your timetable. You know, those who are in the UK, the time is good for you. That's why we've kept it at this time, so that children, if they had to go to school, they can still come back and join the lessons. And I wish everyone all the happy. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاك الله. السلام عليكم.